All right, it's the stats guy here from AFL today. Going to go through my SuperCoach team. Bit of a weird year. We've got lots of players in the defenders, lots of players in the mids. Really interesting way to cover the forward line. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with the obvious. You got to go Nick Dacos. If you don't have him in your team, what's the point of doing SuperCoach? So I'm chucking him in there. Then I'm going to go Sicily. A lot of he's only at 21% actually, which surprises me, but I think he's an ultra reliable performer. Does the kickouts. He's going to take a lot of intercept marks, I think, as well for the Hawks. So he comes in next. Who have I got next? Tom Stewart. I'm just picking the top three. I think that's pretty easy most years. You got Tom Stewart. Wasn't amazing in preseason, but he just gets a lot of the ball. Probably the best defender in the competition. So I'm going to go Tom Stewart. Next one's my pod. I'm going to go Wanganeen Millera. I think he's going to have an absolutely awesome year. Averaged 23 disposals last year. I think he can get that up to about 28, 29. Got 29 in the practice match. Sinclair's out possibly for the first little bit of the season, so he's going to drive off half back. So he's in next for me. Let's have a look at some rookies in the back line. Josh Gibkiss, I'm going to go first. I think he'll be really good for Richmond. A lot of guys, not enough big guys back there for Richmond, but I think he's going to do a good job. Can get some intercept marks. Really good one-on-one. I think he'll find a little bit of the ball. My last rookie on the starting position is Nick Caulfield. Obviously scored pretty well early in his career for the Saints. Got a lot of injuries. Looked okay in the preseason, about 14 touches, but I think he can find his best form back at the Dogs, so he's in next for me. Looking at the bench, I'm always not too good with the bench of who I pick, but I'm going to go Zach Reed. Got an 80-something SuperCoach score in the preseason. Looks a bit solid, a bit more matured, so I reckon he'll be all right for the bench pick. Then I'm going to go Toby Pink. As a North fan, looks pretty solid. We'll have job security with not many tall backs, so he'll play most games and have a bit of a price rise for your bench there. All right, let's go through the mids. Got to be the obvious one. If you don't have, I'm going to say Dacos and then this guy you have to have in your team. The Bont, actually, I better click on the mids before I do that. Let's go Marcus Bontempelli. He's an absolute superstar. Should have had a Brown, though. I think Leo mentioned on his last video on AFL today, should have had a Brown, though, as well. Got to have him as your number one. I think he's the most expensive player, but yeah, you got to have him in your team. Next one I'm going is Petrarca. I think he's going to have a big year with Clary not even doing a preseason. A lot of question marks on Clary. That's another part of the podcast we'll probably have to cover. He's, got to be in your team. Really expensive, but yeah, ultra reliable. Only 21%, which surprises me as well. But he averaged 120 last year, so speaks for himself. Next one, Butters. It says on here that he's injured, but it's just an ankle issue from the preseason. He'll be fine. Even if he's half injured, they'll want to wheel him out there because he's their best player, Port Adelaide. So get him in your side. I think he's going to have a ripper year. Scores goals as well from the midfield. Score involvements is what you want in SuperCoach, so he's my next pick. Being a bit biased here, Luke Davies-Uniacke, LDU. He's, what did he average last year? 114, 113. I think he can up that. Just about injury worries is what a lot of people worry about. He's going to be the main guy at North Melbourne, getting the clearances, contested ball, which is perfect for SuperCoach. Just have to worry if he's going to stay fit. If he stays fit, he's going to average near that 115, 120 plus, I think, because he's an absolute superstar. Next one, Errol Goulden. He's my pick for the Brownlow. I think he's going to have an awesome year. He's going to be my captain in this team as well for round one. I had a look the other day. Round one scores, I think the last 4 years, he's got 125 plus. So I reckon he's going to get 130, 140 for round one. So I'm going to put him there. I'll chuck him as captain at the end after we save the team. Next one, Nick Martin. I didn't have him originally in my team, but a few Essendon supporters in the office been talking about him, and I don't mind his pick. He dominated the preseason, and yeah, I think he'll be really good there. And he's really cheap option, $492,000 for a guy that should get over 100 a game. For that one. Let's go Colby McKercher for the first rookie starting in my mids. $202,000, obviously a bit more expensive for a rookie, but he's looking to play that Sheasel role that with last year that SuperCoach players absolutely love. Should get a lot of the ball. Next one as well, Riley Sanders, 30 touches in that last preseason game for the Dogs. I'll have to find him in a second. Oh, there we go. He spells it a bit differently. That's why I couldn't find him with a random Y in there. Who puts Ys in the middle of their name? He's going to be my last mid on my starting team because he's an absolute star. He's just going to get a lot of the ball. Might not be contested and things like that, but he's just going to get around 20 touches a game. Should be, really increase in price. Having a look at my bench, going to go Jeremy Sharp, first one off the bench. Really cheap for a guy that looks like he should have a pretty solid spot in Freo's lineup, so I'm chucking him there. Next one, he'll probably be my main emergency, is Jai Clark. I think he's going to have a really good season for the Cats. Only played a few games in his career, but he looks to have matured, put on a bit of size, gets a lot of the ball. I think he had about 18 touches on the weekend in preseason. Hopefully he can get around that, get us another more price for this, a bit of a cash cow there. Finally, Rawlinson, I'm picking. People might go, who? Locke Rawlinson. He played for the West Coast Eagles. Just cheap option. I think he might get a game because he's only 102,000, so I'm just chucking him in there to save some cash elsewhere. Maybe even a loophole option if he doesn't play, because we don't mind a loophole option in SuperCoach. Rucks, I'm going the obvious. I'm going Gaundy. You got to bring them back. The pairing that everyone loved in SuperCoach for so many years. Gawn, probably a bit more expensive at 583, but he's going to have a great year just being on the ruck side by himself. So I'm going to go him. Other one, Grundy, really cheap this year. Probably the cheapest he's been in SuperCoach. Obviously played a lot of VFL last year, but he fits into that Sydney side really well. Bench, I think a lot of people started to figure him out in the preseason because he had a really good game. 80 SuperCoach over the weekend in the preseason. So Sam Naismith. Nankervis is out, big Nank. So he's going to have a bigger role, Naismith, with no other rucks there. So that'll be interesting to see how he goes. But I think he could be a really big cash cow on the bench for the rucks. All right, let's get into the forwards as I have a look at my team. This is where it gets interesting. I'm going no Primos in my forward line, and people will be very shocked with that. A lot of people are going Fife. I think he's up to about 50% or more in a lot of SuperCoach sides. Dusty might be missing the first round, I believe, because he's still injured. I don't want to touch any of those guys. McRae as well has had injury worries. I'm just going to go simple. James Jordan. Obviously, no Taylor Adams. Jordan looked really good on the wing with 30 touches in the preseason. I think he's going to have a great role for Sydney. Next one, Jack Billings. I was a bit hesitant, but he also looked really good in preseason. He's really cheap and a guy that's been in the league for a long time. A couple of seasons ago for St Kilda, he was averaging close to, maybe 5 seasons ago, he was averaging around the 80s. So even if he gets around that for a couple of games, he's going to increase in price. So he's my next one. Harley Reid, pretty obvious. I think almost everyone has Harley Reid. Didn't shine too much in the preseason, but he's going to have a constant role for West Coast. There's not enough guys that are going to score. I don't know who the hell's going to score in SuperCoach for West Coast, so just pick him because he might get some good scores. 74% now of teams, so I think he's a pretty obvious pick. Alex Sexton, Dimo was talking him up, him and Flanders. Actually, I'm steering clear of Flanders because I just want to see how he goes, if he can be that consistent player. Sexton, only 133,000 for a guy that's been in the league a long time. Only averaged the 23 SuperCoach points last year. But he's playing half-back and got, I think, around 30 touches as well in the preseason. So that's one of those guys, the modern half-backs are just getting a lot of touches and he might get a few SuperCoach points. Really big cash cow if he's only 133,000. Next up, I'm going Darcy Wilson. I think he should be another rookie lock. He's only, 57%. I thought he was a bit lower than that. He killed it in the preseason as well. So many touches, damaging player that can, he has a bit of size for a rookie. So you absolutely love that. Finally, rounding out my forward line, which people might think is very average, Aaron Cadman. I think he's playing North Melbourne, my beloved North Melbourne, in the first week, and the second week he's playing West Coast. I might even get rid of him after that because he's going to, I reckon he could dominate the first couple of weeks just because, first of all, North don't have enough big defenders, either do West Coast. So I'm going to put him in as my starting team, and people, let me know if you reckon that's a bit average because I'm getting some looks in the office here that they don't like that one, but that's all right. On my bench, I'm going to go Bailey Laurie. He could end up starting. I reckon he could have a decent season. Got a few touches in the preseason and seems to have a decent role at the Ds, so I'm putting him on my bench. And then the other one I might have to take out, depending if he gets a starting role or not, is Shawnee Manor. Just because he's so cheap, I think he could be a bit of an X factor for the Cats, but I'll have to wait and see when the teams come out. He'll have to change it. So I'm going to go Goulden as my captain. I'll probably go Bont vice captain, and in the future you got to go Bont captain for most of the season. But let me know how my team is in the comments.